Welcome back, everybody. Episode 39 of the Triathlon Preview Show.
Hey, everybody. Good to be back. It's been a couple weeks, I think.
Yeah, we took off a couple weeks. Had some stuff to do. We were just busy, couldn't get together, and the races were a little lackluster anyways. So we wanted to save all our energy for the big races this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And, the Real Coaching podcast and TRS radio started back up. So we wanted to let them have their moment to shine.
Yeah, we didn't want to overshadow anybody.
Exactly.
So this weekend we got some pretty big races. Ironman 70.3 World Championship is here again. And then we also had the ITU series starting up again in Edmonton. So two pretty high-profile races this weekend.
Yeah, and it's going to kind of be like we can talk weather real quick, but it looks like it's going to be nice down on the sunny coast, kind of mid 50s to 60s in the morning, warming up to maybe into the 70s. That's Fahrenheit. And then in Edmonton, it looks like it might be kind of a replay of last year, low 50s, high 40s, but no rain this year. So allegedly, but definitely different racing conditions.
Yeah, I actually heard there was a tsunami off the coast of New Zealand.
Oh, really? Maybe that'll bring in a good swell for the swim on Sunday.
Should be interesting. Let's start out in Australia then with the Ironman 70.3 World Championship.
Okay, so I took a look at the course, and usually at this race they do a beach start, and so you'd have to go through the surf. This year they changed it, and you start about 100 meters offshore, and then it's just a straight shot 700 meters kind of parallel to the beach to your first left turn, and then you make another, then swim like 100 meters, make another left, and kind of come back the way you came. So the first 700 meters are going to be into the sun. So that can make it challenging. And then if the surf kind of comes in, there could be some chop or some rollers out there. And then, if you can catch a wave coming into transition, onto the beach, that might move you up kind of into the group. Then the bike is going to be flat and fast for the first kind of 33 miles, 50K about. And then you do 2 loops in some hills. There's just some kind of punchy, steep hills, nothing too long, no real technical descents. So that'll be good for Lionel Sanders, who said he had some problems with some technical descending in Wiesbaden. And then the run is a 2-loop affair, and it's got a hill at the beginning, and then it's kind of flat, and then you come back, and then you have a hill coming back, going to the turnaround, down the hill, turn around and go right back up the same hill, and then you encounter that same hill again right before the finish. So there's going to be some fast racing going on for sure. It's not like it'll be there's a couple little kickers, but it's going to be fast.
Should be an interesting course for the field that we have. Let's start. What do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the males. I just mentioned Lionel, so we can just kind of go into that.
All right. Well, the males, obviously defending champion is not here. Ferdino is not racing.
Which I think is smart.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart. It stinks. I think like Lionel said something like, you always want to race the best or something like that. So, but there is plenty of competition left on the start list. So it definitely should be an interesting field. Sebastian, Sanders, Rudy Wild, they're the top 3 bib numbers. And then a lot more people below that.
Yeah, I mean, you got like Dreets, just took the championship at Wiesbaden in Europe. That's a real tough course, very technical, and I'm sure he knows it. And that kind of helped him because he was able to get away from Lionel, who lost some time on the downhills. But you have like Sam Appleton, Joe Gambles, who is 3rd at St. George, Josh Amberger, who's been training on the course the last month, and he'll be ready to go racing on home soil. He's a great swimmer. I just think, with that first 50K being flat and fast, like I just think you're going to see a pretty big group, and then it's going to come down to the hills, and is that going to break people up?
I mean, you say that the first 50K. I mean, do you think people aren't going to be able to get away on the swim?
I mean, I think it'll depend on what the conditions are like out there. It is going to probably be wetsuit legal, I believe, for the pros. Don't quote me on that, but I think it probably will be. So I think that'll make a difference, wetsuit legal and in saltwater. So everybody's going to not have to work for their body position. That keeps people a little closer. And I mean, like, we saw, I mean, just, at Vine Man, I mean, I think 5 people came off the bike together. It was like Sam Appleton, Tim Reed, Andy Potts, Craig Alexander, and I can't remember who the 5th person was, but they were all running together, the first 9 miles or something like that. So, and Vine Man definitely has some hills to break things up on the bike, but it just didn't break up. So it might be the same. I mean, except for Potts, you've got all those guys there, and they're all good swimmers. So, I mean, it's good for them. They can ride together that first 50K. Maybe that'll keep them away from Sanders a little bit, who's going to probably be behind.
Do you think when you have a field like this with obviously there's more quality swimmers in a championship field compared to just every other 70.3 where Sanders has done pretty well. But so basically there's a group and not just 1 or 2 ahead of Sanders, on the bike. There's a good group that are contenders at the end. Obviously there's more than 1 or 2 coming out of the water before Sanders, but contenders at the end of the day. Do you think that helps everybody, or do you think that hurts Sanders that there's a group out in front of him?
I mean, yeah, it might, but I mean, at the same time, Sanders might be able to hook up with some people like Dreets or Keenlay, Trevor Wortell. Who else is, so there might be some people for him to ride with. I just think that the pace is going to be really hot up front, and they're going to know that like people like Sanders and Keenlay and Dreets are coming. So they're going to want to keep it keep it going out front. And I mean, when the draft zone's only 12 meters and you're on a straight, it's like a drag race, and positioning will be important. And I mean, it's easier in quotes on those flat courses to kind of ride as a group.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about entering anybody's draft zone on an uphill or a downhill.
Well, the downhill, sometimes you slingshot into them, but I mean, yeah, it's just, it's going to be like, and everybody's like all jazzed and super fit and ready to go. So, are people going to burn too many matches once they get to the hills? And then that's where like people like Keenlay and Sanders and Dreets are going to start to eat into the lead, or are they going to be able to catch everybody beforehand? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But and I mean, you have someone like Luke McKenzie too. He knows this course. Tyler Butterfield's on the list. He just won pretty big in New Hampshire at Timberman, and I heard he had a flat there. So I mean, he's fit. Brent McMahon's going to be there. He's been training in Maui. So he's getting fit for Kona. It's just it's a long list, and I feel like it's going to come down to the run. I think there'll probably be a group that's pretty together on the run. I don't think anybody's going to let anybody go unless that person is just like head and shoulders above everybody else.
I'd be scared about Dreets just because this is it. I mean, this is his race, right? I mean, he's not doing Kona.
No.
And, I mean, you got like Sebastian, Kona, Rudy Wild, Kona, Tim Reed, Kona, Tim Don, Kona, Trevor Wortell, Kona, Sanders, Kona, like you, when this is your only race, like feel like you're ready to go. And obviously the other guys are doing some longer stuff and, maybe a little less speed work, where Dries was just really impressive to me at the Wiesbaden.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's like, someone like Joe Gambles, he's not doing Kona as well, and did real well at St. George. It's like they don't have anything in the back of their mind to say, oh, this isn't going well. Oh, well, at least I have Kona. They don't say that. It's like, this has got to go well, right? This is like my championship race. Bazone has Kona. I mean, he's always a threat in 70.3s. So someone, he'll be up there. It's just going to be really interesting to see what happens. That first, I think 50K of the bike, is it all going to stay together? And then what happens in the hills? But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to the run. I think there's going to be some really fast running going on, and it'll be good temperature for running. It's not going to get that hot or anything. So you're not going to have that kind of collateral damage.
All right. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I kind of been thinking about this all day, and I don't know how it's going to play out. And I think it's because I think in the past couple years between Gomez and Jan, like it hasn't really been a race. I mean, it has, but not really. I mean,
right. Well, I mean, Kienle had the fastest run last year, didn't he?
Yes, he did. You're right. He did. But you never, I mean, when you're running down, when you're at the last mile and you're like, oh, I'm 2 minutes up on somebody else, like, you really think they ran as hard as they could, that last mile? Not saying that last mile differentiated anything, but.
No, I get what you're saying. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that I think, if they do come off in a big group, like I wouldn't count Kienle out. I mean, I think he can run well. I mean, he ran well in Frankfurt, and I don't think he likes his record, so to speak, against Lionel Sanders.
Yeah.
So, and Dritz has been in this position before. I mean, he was off the bike first last year, and his run seems to be improved. So we'll see what happens there. And then, I mean, yes, you have Craig Alexander, he's like,
he's going to be there with a chance for something at the end of the day at mile 9. I mean, if that's a win at mile 9 or a podium at mile 9, he's going to be there.
Yes.
But he's going to be consistent.
Right. And I mean, Tim Reed is strong. So I think there'll be a large group of contenders coming off the bike, and then the run per usual will probably shake it out. I don't think anybody's going to be like, unless Sanders has like an unreal ride, but I don't feel like anybody's going to be like totally off the front, but I could be completely wrong. But I think people are going to try to hang on no matter what.
So what I've noticed is I feel like everybody does picks now. I feel like every publication is doing picks, but we were the first ones to do picks. Nobody else was doing picks before us.
Yes, we are the original.
So I feel like we should have to do picks again.
Oh, great. I'll lead. We should do? What should we do? We should pick who won't be on the podium. Like which favorite won't be on the podium. We don't have to. Just an idea. We can do picks. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So I am going to go Sanders, Craig, Dritz.
Are you serious? That's exactly what I was going to pick.
No fucking way.
Yeah, I was going to go Sanders, Alexander, Dritz. Okay, so I'll mix it up so we can cover our bases. I'm going to go completely. I'm going to go Tim Reed, Lionel Sanders, Sam Appleton.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But even though because you had to switch picks. Now, my one thing, off the podium, obviously, I think Sanders is going to be down there. I mean, he was third last year, right? Third last year?
No. Was he? No.
No, he was 7? I don't remember.
I don't think he was on the podium. Last year it was Frodeno, Kienle, and Gomez. I don't think Sanders was fourth when
No,
they were
okay,
in
yeah,
Mont Tremblant.
Keenly. Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm gonna say Sebastian is gonna have a bad race. That's my
Well, that's okay.
that's my prediction.
That's okay. The last time he had a bad race at 70.3s, he won Kona. So um, it might be good and bad.
All right, let's move on to the
Um,
women.
okay. Well, I think this first we should know Lauren Barnett, who was ninth last year, is out, and Meredith Kessler is also out. So the list was updated. Uh, this is, it's like, from what we know, Mel Hoschild is healthy. Um, so this is going to be like first time we see her kind of racing Daniela Reef.
In a
And
long
Mel
time.
just had a Yeah, and Mel just had a really good race in Wiesbaden as well. She won there and ran a 118 off the bike. So she's fit.
Yeah, I was
And I'm
reading
sure,
something about Reef and Mel that Reef has never beaten Mel when like I don't know, they're both healthy or some bullshit. Or there's some like circumstances, but they were talking about how Reef was Mel's you know, kryptonite.
yeah. Because I mean, I don't know. It just seems like we haven't seen it. Like just as Reef was getting really good, Mel kind of had her couple down years where she was injured and, didn't make it to the start line at Kona for a couple years. And then same with 70.3 World. So, and then at Frankfurt this year, Reef pulled out with hypothermia. So that never materialized. Even though they were in the same race. So hopefully everything goes according to plan and we get to see a showdown. Um, I think someone who else could be in the mix is Holly Lawrence. She almost broke Mel's course record at Vineman in a non-wetsuit swim, and then she broke Reef's course record at Mont Tremblant, I believe. And I mean, maybe she broke the cycling record, the bike course record, but she put in a pretty big performance in Mont Tremblant and Vineman.
She's put in some pretty big performances back to back. I mean, she's since like what, St. George?
Yeah.
So since May, she's had some pretty good performances. Person I'm looking for is Stefan. I mean, she said this is her race this year. Kona, basically always a Kona podium, potential Kona podiumer, and not racing Kona this year. So to me, that just puts, I don't know if that puts extra pressure on you that you gave up your Kona slot all year. You said you weren't going to do it, and this is your race, or does that just show you this is what you're going for? This is all I care about.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing about Caroline is, so she just won in the Philippines. She's won there quite a few times, but I look at her performance at Vineman, and I think that was a little off. I mean, I think Holly beat her by 8 or 9 minutes, and Caroline was just a little off in each kind of discipline. The swim, the bike. She lost some time. Like, is she ready to go to be at that level? Because I don't think she'll be out of the water. In the front group, because you're going to have like Lauren Brandon's in the race. So you're going to have Lauren out front, but Holly has shown like she's only been like 20 seconds behind Lauren Brandon the last couple races. So, I mean, it could, and Lauren is always keen to ride really hard, and she'll stick with Holly like as long as she can. And then, someone like Reef and Vodakova, they might be a little bit behind, or they could be right there out of the swim. So you could have kind of a bigger group, but Holly is not someone who lets that lead go very easily. And Caroline has yet to show that she can ride up to that front group this year.
Yeah. It definitely be interesting to see if people get off the run or off the bike with Reef, because usually like in her races she's ahead from like she's the first off the bike, and then
Right.
it's her race. So it'd be interesting to see if others get off or ahead of her on the bike, what happens? Because I don't think
Yeah.
she's been put in that predicament as of late, at least.
And I mean, just by the way that Holly Lawrence races, like say Reef is riding up, during the bike, like Holly is gonna try to go with her. There's no doubt about it. Like Holly will turn herself inside out and end up walking on the run before, she lets someone just ride away from her. I mean, she might lose a minute or two, might, I say might. Um, or she could stay up front. So I think Reef might maybe a little more challenge, but then you never know. I mean, she did 2 8-hour, sub 9-hour Ironmans, you know, this summer. Like she's definitely fit, but is she tired? I don't know. And then you have people like Mel Hochschild, Heather Wertel, who are going to be kind of coming from behind out of the swim. Are they going to be able to get up to the front?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Heather Wortel. I mean, what was she last year? Second?
Second.
And then the year before, third? Somewhere up
Yes.
there.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, is she an afterthought this year because of the Mel Reef thing? Like, and Holly Lawrence coming on the scene? I mean, is Heather kind of like under the radar?
I would say so. I mean, she won St. George, obviously. Had a real strong race there. I mean, with that flat part, the first part of the bike course, I'm sure Heather would like a little more hills throughout the whole ride versus, kind of 15 Ks of them towards the end. But that said, like, I mean, Heather can put out massive watts on the flats because she's tall and strong. So that does play to her advantage. And if, I don't know, say the wind is blowing a lot, that could break up the front group a little bit and make it harder for everybody. So if that kind of thing happens, Heather could definitely ride up. But I mean, last year, like Reef won by like what, 11 minutes, and that's nothing against Heather at all. But it was a big gap last year.
Oh, it was huge. I
So
remember her. I mean, she was running into like the males like nothing. I mean, like nothing I've ever seen.
right. So like, do we even like Mel is going to be down out of the water? I mean, does she even have a chance to catch up? Like, given how well Reef rides, maybe not.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point. Maybe I'm not sure where Heather and Mel come out of the water in relevance to each other.
Mm, I would say within the same minute,
So
Heather might
maybe they can
Heather
work
might be a little
together
ahead. Hmm?
ish. They can try to work together. Hopefully there'll be a group back there that can work together.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there will be, and they might pick up people along the way who take a little bit to warm up. I mean, we haven't mentioned Ellie Salthouse. She was 5th at St. George, and she'll be up there out of the swim. Heather Lendway, she'll be up there out of the swim for sure. Alicia Kay should be up there. I mean, she was 5th last year, but she's kind of started that foray into the Ironman world and is getting ready for Kona and just did Lake Placid. Like, how ready is she going to be for the kind of speed that it's going to take on this course? She might not quite have that on the day. Laura Philippe, number 127. She's someone who could, kind of be coming up with like Mel Hochschild and Heather Wertel and things like that. She's a real strong rider.
This list, I don't know if it's more in. I think they're just as good as they're both great lists. But to me, picking three ladies is harder than picking 3 males.
Yeah. I mean, and we haven't even mentioned Magali. She was 4th last year. So I mean, you always see in the world championships, like you have to show up on the day, and sometimes people just don't. for whatever reason. Like, we don't know what's going on. I mean, you have Leanda Cave. We haven't seen her at a 70.3 world championship in a while, and she's been training in Boulder. So, I mean, that tells me that she's taking it very seriously, and she's probably pretty fit.
Yeah, I mean, she's won here before too. I mean, she knows what it
Yeah.
takes to win. Yeah, it's been a couple years, but I mean, experience always helps. That
Yeah.
can't hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I mean, Danielle, obviously, she knows how to win, and it's hard to pick against her, but I think she might have get a good challenge from Holly Lawrence and Mel Hochschild and Heather Wortel. I guess I just gave away kind of who I think is going to be up at the front. So,
do you want to make picks for this?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first since you went.
Right, I wrote mine down.
Oh, okay.
So this way, if we pick the same people, I can show you my little piece of paper.
Okay. I'm going to go Reef, Lawrence, Wortel.
Ah, so close.
Okay.
I went Reef, Lawrence, Mel.
Okay. I think my not dark house for the top 10, but I think Lauren Brandon's going to be up there off the bike if she cycles like she's capable of and swims well, which she usually does. And I think she might hang on for a top 10. I mean, the run is not her forte, but she's gritty as all get out, and she can hang on well. So I think Lauren Brandon has a shot for the top 10.
How close do you think Reef and Lawrence will be? Or how about this? Does Reef get off the bike before Lawrence?
Yes.
And she keeps the lead.
Yes. I think maybe in the end it'll end up being 4 or 5 minutes. Maybe.
Yeah. I was gonna say the 5-minute range is. I don't think it'll be 10+ minutes.
No.
But until I see otherwise, Reef is just ahead of everybody else ahead of everybody else, the 70.3 distance.
Yep, but I'm all for someone proving us wrong. So
definitely. I would love to see somebody else win. It's no fun when the same person always wins.
Right. And I mean, luck always runs out, right? Well, it's not luck, but I mean, it doesn't always go your way.
Yeah.
I guess.
All right, let's move on. Draft Legal's back. Rio was great. Now we're finishing with the last 2 races of the WTS series, and we are in Edmonton.
Yeah, so it's just a sprint distance because they have the Cozumel grand finale in 2 weeks. So sprint distance and 1 loop swim, which will be wetsuit legal, and then 4 loops on the bike, 3 loops on the run. I think it's kind of a little bit kind of an uphill on the way out on the bike, kind of slight downhill on the way back. And then the run, I believe, is flat. And like I said before, it's going to be cold. So that'll be a factor, just like it was last year. Typical Canadian weather.
So we have men. For the men, we have only podium for the men we have is Johnny Brownlee from the podium from Rio.
Yeah. You had a couple top 10 guys. You have Aaron Royal, Mario Mola,
Richard Murray.
Yeah, Richard Murray. Who else was top 10? Well, anyway, I think it'll just be, I mean, obviously these conditions are going to be totally different than Rio. So it's just kind of who got out of the Rio fog, didn't party too much after the race was over and is ready to go for this one. I think it probably, you go through a little bit of a trough mentally, maybe a little coming out of Rio, and just have to kind of get back up and into racing. So that said, it might be, I think with it being cold, it's going to be a strength race, much like it was last year. And Murray won last year, didn't he? Wasn't it him and Gomez?
I do not remember, but we
I
can
believe
find
it
out.
was. So, you know, Murray's coming back and it's going to be cold and nasty and everyone's going to probably feel like shit. So, I mean, just having to deal with those conditions. So, it's not it's not a speed race like I think Mola would like. So the stronger people can kind of come through. Like Yao Pereira, I think he was in the top 10 at Rio, so he's in good form. Grajales is going to be there. He was pretty high up in Rio too. So you're going to have, a lot of people that maybe are looking to avenge not a great Rio performance, and then people who are still like really excited about how they did in Rio. And then, you have Eric Lagerstrom, um, Rudy Von Berg from the United States, Kevin McDowell. So you have, some new people in the groups.
Yeah, last year was Murray, Gomez, Mola for the top three.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense to me that Mola is probably not cold, probably isn't what he would pick. And he's being smaller. I'm sure he gets pretty cold. So that might affect him more than, say, Richard Murray, who's a little bit more, I guess, robust. And then like Jonathan Brownlee, like this is kind of his, I forgot he was going to be there. So he'll be driving that front group, I'm sure, with Varga. But it's a sprint race, so the gaps aren't going to be as big out of the water.
Yeah, and Westfield Eagles. So we'll see where the break is in the front pack this time. It could be a big group.
Yeah, and I remember last year when we previewed this race, I think maybe it was Jared Schomacher who told us that positioning in the swim is really important because you kind of make a left-hand bend. So if you're kind of on the outside, you end up swimming a lot farther. So that could cause a split, but yeah, in a 750-meter swim, you don't get as, it's just not as big. So
It's interesting that I saw Alistair is racing a non-draft Olympic over in China. He's doing Beijing. So
yeah,
I'm
that
not even sure if
Beijing
he'll
race.
race the Cozumel grand final.
I can't imagine he wouldn't, but I guess we'll have to see. I mean, but he did win the gold medal. Like, I mean, he doesn't need to race it, right? And he's not in the points hunt. The only reason he come over and race it is just to be like, haha, I can still win the big one, and
As
kind of
I don't
mix
know if
it.
he is or not. I just know. I think he's taking this weekend off, and then he's racing next weekend in Beijing. I think so. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I mean Murray obviously won here last year in the cold. I think like you said, I think he runs well in the colder weather. Um, so if he can latch on in that swim and not lose that group, it could be a good ride. Could be a good run for everybody.
Right. You're just gonna have Brownlee up there, So, so I just pulled up the Cozumel list, and Alistair's on it.
Yeah,
But that's right. That's right now. He can still pull out.
yeah. I mean, it'll definitely be interesting. I mean, obviously Johnny's going to be up there, so he's going to be trying to pull that front group away as fast as he can. See how many he can sprinkle off the back right away.
Yeah.
So we'll see who can hold on, and I mean, who puts those surges. It's amazing that you always watch Eric Langerstorm's videos, and it's like you have to lay down some massive watts if you want to make that front group if you're in the end.
Right. And I mean, Jonathan, like if he can do well in this race, I mean, that'll help his kind of, chances for getting onto that podium in the rankings. Because he was second or third at Gold Coast, and then second at Leeds. If he can get a win here and then like a podium at the grand final, like he's gonna be up there.
He's
So,
actually third right now. It's
oh
Mola, Alarza, and Brownlee.
yeah,
So there's actually a pretty good gap between a lot of people in the top five, like 300 or 400 points between each place in the top five. So we'll see how that shakes it up.
yeah. I mean, this, if he has a good race and Mola has a bit of an off race, I mean, that could set up for a really good grand final in Cozumel, and who knows, something like that could influence whether or not Alistair decides to race, like, or how Alistair decides to race. But we'll talk about that later.
All right, let's do we make picks for the men?
No, the sprint races are way too hard.
Yeah. We don't want to look bad anyways.
No, someone will finish first, second, and third. I just don't know who. We'll find out on Sunday.
All right, let's move on to the ladies. To me, this start list is better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. There's more people kind of returning from, what you call it, the Olympics, to race again. I mean, you have Vicky and Non both racing. Katie Zafiris is racing. Sarah True, after what was definitely a disappointing Olympics, is racing. So, I mean, Andrea Hewitt, who didn't have, I mean, she was good in the Olympics, but probably not where she wanted to be. Rachel Clommer, Carolina Routier was leading, on the bike, with the front group, and then got a flat. So she'll be looking to have a good race. Flora Duffy didn't have a great race at the Olympics. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. She wasn't as dominant as we're used to seeing her, but I think that was just the dynamics of everybody riding hard, and it's hard to ride away from a big group of 10 people when everybody's like going hard.
Nobody wants to let go in the Olympics. If you watch people go up the road, your race is done. So it's completely different. Like, yeah. Jody Stimpson.
Yes.
Right. I mean, this is all she's playing for this year, right? The WTS series, the wins here. So I think she's second right now to Flora. So, she needs some good. She definitely would like some points going into the final race.
Yeah, and she just switched. She's living in Boulder and training with Siri. So kind of first race, to see how that's going, and maybe just a little bit kind of, I don't want to say remotivated. Is that even a word? But kind of reinvigorated maybe, or inspired, type thing, just given everything she's been through this year of not going to the Olympics. And maybe in the back of her head, it's like, I want to kick some ass because I didn't get to do the Olympics, and I want to show you that I'm worthy. I mean, she knows she's worthy, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you just want to, like, kind of like, what's up now type thing. So, whereas like Vicky and Nan were at the Olympics doing all that stuff, went back to Great Britain, coming all the way back over here. I mean, that can be tiring as well, but they're young.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too from I guess a points perspective of how that shakes out. I mean, between Duffy, Stimpson, and even Gwen's on the podium right now for the total, ranking points. There's a lot of girls that are racing here that can bump themselves up. So it could be interesting to a lot of women could be in contention for those podium spots and Cozumel. So it's definitely a good race they want to perform at.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Katie was right at the front in the front group at Rio, and then just couldn't kind of close the deal on the run. I think the pace was really rich on the bike, and it was hot out, so I think that probably took the zing out of her legs for the run. But I'm sure she's going to be ready to go. And sprint races are always so much harder to call because it's a sprint race, and just not as much time to make the gap. So it's kind of who's on for the day a little bit and who's ready to go for that 5K run.
Yeah, I mean, if you miss that front swim pack by a couple seconds, your race in the sprint is almost already done just because of the fast and furious nature of it.
Yeah. And I mean, you are going to have people up front, like Jody, hopefully will have a good swim. Vicky Holland, Katie Zafiris is going to be up there. Sarah True and Andrew Hewitt, probably Nikki Samuels. Like, they like to keep the pace rich on the bike. So it's hard for that second group to catch back up. Flora's there. So, it's just whether or not it's going to come back together, or whether, the packs stay separate, and who does well in the cold, because that will hurt some people for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the women, plays a big factor, for the women too, as far as the coldness.
Yeah. And I mean, I think last year this was just speaking of Australians, Jillian Backhouse, I think this was her first WTS podium. So she's got good memories here and she's not coming off the Olympics. So she's someone who might be up there. I mean, it's just, I think you'll see the normal faces. And I think Marie Robbie from South Africa is another one who's been at the front, kind of all year long. So I think you'll see kind of the normal crew. Kristen Casper, she's on the list. I mean, she's been swimming great. So might be, someone who wasn't at the Olympics is feeling good and gets a win.
I was looking for that one U.S. lady.
Summer Cook, she's someone who's, I mean, she was running.
What's the really young one? What's her
Oh,
name?
I know who you're talking about, and I'm totally blanking on her. Taylor Knibb.
Taylor Knibb, because I saw Taylor. That's not her. I'm going back to look at the last name.
No, that's Taylor Spivey.
Okay.
Yeah, so Taylor Knibb's not on the list. So, but yeah, she's real strong too. She's kind of the future if Gwen decides not to kind of keep racing triathlon. For sure.
Right.
Not to mention like Katie Zafiris and Kirsten Casper. We've got a strong women's team per usual.
Yeah, definitely. The U.S. women are looking pretty strong for several years to come, it looks like.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know. We'll have to see on Sunday. I mean, Flora is always a favorite for this distance because she's not afraid to get away and she's usually pretty good in the cold and can hold people off on the 5K run.
Yeah, like I think you're right, and I think you'll see how people bounce back from from Rio. I think a lot of women probably had top three aspirations, and just to see how they can react from maybe a down day or even a top 10, but not a top 3.
Yeah. I mean, like just like I mean, just outside the medals. So, see how she goes. I mean, sometimes a race is just a good thing to kind of refocus and not think about, what happened in Rio. It just kind of helps you move on maybe.
Yep. All right.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. And we'll be back next week, I think, to talk about Beijing and Santa Cruz maybe and Ironman Wisconsin.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.